My name is Detective Matt Shaut, and I'm assigned to the Leon County Sheriff's Office Investigations Unit, and I'm in charge of the sex offender unit. When in the state of Florida, when you go to a trial and you are convicted and adjudicated guilty of a sex crime, you are designated a sexual offender. Now, depending upon the seriousness of your crime, you may either be just a standard sex offender, or you may be, if it's a more egregious crime, you may be a sexual predator. Regardless of what that is, you are now responsible to register with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. If you're a sexual offender, you have to register twice a year on your birth date and then 6 months after. If you're a sexual predator, you have to register 4 times a year, every 3 months on your birthday, and each month, 3 months after that. They take a photo of you, and then they give you have to put down your name, social security number, address, where you work, where you live, you have vehicles that are at your house, whether you own them or not. You have to put down your internet identifier, so if you have a bunch of emails or anything else, that all has to be put down. Failure to have any of those constitutes its own additional felony. Basically what I do is I go out there and I'm like, hey, I'm here to verify you, my police see your driver's license, and can you confirm this information that's on this page that I print out? If they're compliant, then I make sure that they say, hey, have you registered for the month? If not, don't forget to do it before the end of the month. And if they aren't, then I try to locate them, or if I can't find them, I may have to do warrants for them. As long as they are working with me and they're maintaining contact, like, hey, detective, I'm over here, I'm doing this, I'm in the process of moving. As long as they keep me appraised and I know about where they are, then I'll work with them. What I do first is I go to the FDLE offender database, and I type them in. I have to enter all their information and say, hey, look, I found him. He's living at that address. Everything's okay. After that, I then go to our database, and I'll write a quick little FIR report system in that. And so each person, it requires that. The main problem I have is when they don't return your phone calls, and if they're not at home, I will leave a hang tag, a bright yellow hang tag that says, hey, I stopped by your house on such and such date at such and such time. Please call me. And if they do that, then I can usually say, well, what time do you go to work? You work from 8 till 6. So I know it's better to go then or there. So if I pop in between there anytime that month and I can get a hold of them, great. If not, and they don't answer me at all, then I'm going to assume that they're trying to avoid me. And then at the end of the month, what I do is all the documentation that I've done as I'm out there, like I've gone out on such and such date, such and such time, I put that all into the report, do a warrant, and try to find them. They want all the specific dates and everything else for a warrant. I mean, I was in financial crimes, and I've written embezzlement cases that required less probable cause than some of these. But it's actually, I don't mind, because it's incredibly important that we know where these people are. I would say for the most part, most people comply, and they're more or less good with it. They've just kind of accepted that that's what they got to do. And a lot of them know they did it, but they're like, hey, I've got my life straightened out. And those are the easy ones to get. I've run across a couple where they're just like, I don't deserve to be on that list. I'm not really complying. I need you to comply with it, because ultimately, if you don't, you're the one who pays for it. There is a big difference between a sexual offender and a sexual predator. Granted, I don't like them to be any of them. I wouldn't like there to be any of them. But they're not all exactly like what you see in TV. And just because you are an offender doesn't mean that you're necessarily excluded from living 1,000 feet from a church, a playground, a park, or a school. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they can't do it. They're not confined to their house. They're not in prison right now. They're essentially free people. They have certain things that they can or cannot do, but for the most part, it's not like they're in house arrest. There is a difference. In reference to the 1,000-foot rule, and a misconception I'd like people to understand is, it's called a residency restriction. Florida statute says certain crimes, what we call 800 offenses, so it says like lewd and lascivious molestation on juveniles, and more egregious, like sexual batteries, the rapes type deal, those automatically are 1,000 feet from a school or everything else. But some counties they've gone a step further, and they're like, we don't care what it is, if you're a sex offender or a sex predator, you're not going to live within 1,000 feet of that. So a lot of times people may have come from another county or another state or another jurisdiction where that's the case. Leon County, that's not the case. We revert back to the state, which says 1,000 feet for that. There is no residency restriction except for certain crimes. So that also adds a little bit to confusion. A lot of those are reciprocal. Like, so basically if you're convicted of one thing in like, let's say Georgia, And it could equate out to a statute that we have in Florida, in which case those same restrictions will apply down here. So it's not like, well, they're trying to escape those evictions by coming down to another state. That's not the way it works. Regardless, once they come in, they have to get a driver's license, change their address, and within 48 hours, they have to register where they are so we know they are. Additionally, if they leave, somebody comes into, like, let's say somebody's coming from Atlanta to visit family down there. If they're more than 72 hours, they got to let us know. And they have to let their state know, so on and so forth. So it's like I said, that's till we make sure we keep a pretty good rein on where they are. But like ultimately, they are free people, but to an extent, they have to still play by the rules.